Hello everybody, it's Tuesday today, Tuesday of Holy Week. I hope you were able to tune in yesterday to Janet's reflection. And so today our reflection is from John chapter 12, verses 20 to 36. So it's quite a long passage. So I'm going to suggest, rather than I read it, that you might like to stop the video, go and get your Bible, and then just take a few minutes to sit and to read that passage really slowly and just allow it to speak to you. So I'll give you a moment to do that. So welcome back. So it's an interesting passage, this one. We have these people coming to Philip to ask to see Jesus. And I guess they certainly didn't expect the response that they would get from Jesus, because he uses that very unusual verse. And let me just read it to you. Unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains just a single grain. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. Now, I don't think that was the answer they were expecting when they came asking to see Jesus. That verse has followed me all my life. I'm not sure if you've had verses like that, but this is certainly one that seems to pop up in my life at different times. I just want to mention one of those experiences to you. It was a long time ago now, but Cole Ray, who many of you would know, worked with me, and we were down at a camp at Southport, and he'd been really thinking about this verse and what it might mean. And I remember we sat on the garden out the front of Southport camp, and we spent quite a while just thinking about what does that verse mean, to say that unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies. And so it's been an important verse to me. And I think it's interesting that we read this verse during this week especially, because if we think about what's been happening in Lent this year, we know that not only have we been thinking about our lives personally and what we might need to strip away, but our whole community has been facing that. We've had a stripping away of all the things that we enjoy doing, getting together with friends and family, going to the beach, going out. All of these things have been stripped away. So in a very real sense, we've been experiencing what Lent really means, and I think this verse can take on new meaning for us. So I want to just mention to you a story that I think illustrates this verse really well. Not sure if any of you know it. It's one of my favourite stories. It's called Hope for the Flowers, and it's about two caterpillars, one called Yellow and one called Stripe. And they were really interested in thinking about what life was all about. Stripe believed that the purpose of life was to go off and find the highest pillar of caterpillars and climb to the top of the pillar no matter what he had to do to get to the top. So he went off on his little journey. But Yellow thought, no, there has to be more to life than just crawling around on the ground and eating leaves and getting fat. So she decided to go on her own journey of discovery. Pretty soon she came to a tree, and she noticed in the tree this strange thing kind of hanging off the branch. She saw that it was a caterpillar, but he seemed to be caught in something. So she said, you know, what on earth are you doing? And he said, oh, I'm actually weaving my cocoon. She had no idea what he was talking about. He said, oh, this is like a halfway house. He said, I'm weaving this cocoon, and that's where the change is going to happen, and I'm going to become a butterfly. And as soon as Yellow heard that word, her whole insides leapt. She was so excited. And she said, but how does that happen? And he said, well, you know, you have in you what's needed to make your cocoon. And she said, but isn't that like dying? And he said, well, yes, it is kind of like dying. It's like a halfway house, because that's where the change takes place. But you have to be really sure that you want to risk to be a butterfly, because you can't go back to being a caterpillar. And Yellow was a bit shocked. She thought, my gosh, this sounds pretty awful. But she decided to risk being a butterfly, and to give herself courage, she climbed up that tree and made her cocoon right beside that other one. I think for me, that story kind of represents what this verse is about. That we are being asked, especially at this time and especially in this Holy Week, to think about what is it that needs to die in us so that we can see Jesus more clearly. And I'm going to suggest to you that after this is over, you might like to sit and just take some time in quietness to really think about what is it that I need to die to? What do I need to allow to die in my life so that I can see Jesus more clearly? And so I pray for all of us as we continue this journey toward the cross, that each one of us might have the courage of Yellow to risk, taking the risk to see Jesus more clearly. So bless you as you continue the journey toward Good Friday and of course Easter Day.